in many countries, the electoral laws are designed to benefit the largest party to help it gain the votes to govern. And if these distortions are sufficient, less than 50% of the vote may be converted into more than 50% of the legislative seats. What this means is that under certain electoral system, even though you receive less than half of the votes nationwide, you may actually end up more than half of the seats in the legislature. Okay? And such artificial legislative majorities have been the rule in countries with first past the post-election system. So again, in SMDs, small parties lose like this, but if you are one of the, two large parties, you will be rewarded more than, what you deserve. Okay? Again, that's a defining feature of SMD. For example, let's see a real-world example and see if it actually happened. Margaret Thatcher's Conservative Party won a solid majority of legislative seats in 1983 and 87 with the backing of only about 42% of the votes. Okay? So nationwide, the vote total was just 42%, but the party received more than half of the seats in the parliament, mainly because the Britain adopts SMD system. Okay? With almost exactly the same level of support in the 1997 elections, about 42% of the votes, Tony Blair and the Labour Party won nearly 2/3 of the seats in the parliament. So in 83 and 87, Conservative Party, one of the two largest parties in Britain, was the beneficiary of SMD system. And then the other large party, of course, is Labour Party. And in 97, Labour Party was the beneficiary. They spell labor L-A-B-O-U-R, and since it is party's name, I consider it as proper noun, 고유명사, and then I spell the way they write themselves. Okay? Well, our textbooks talk about countries like Britain, but not about Korea, right? But since a large chunk of National Assembly persons are elected in SMDs in Korea, I got curious about, if the same thing happens in Korea. And this is the result. We looked at all the National Assembly elections since the democratic opening, that is, since 1987, so 14th through 19th National Assembly elections. The 19th happened just last year, right? And we looked at the statistics for the largest party only, okay? We don't care the name of the largest party. It could have been 한나라당, it could have been 우리당. Okay? And you see the percentage of votes largest party received in each election. And as I mentioned, Korea uses mixed system, but we want to see the impact of SMDs. So we looked at the statistics for the SMD seats only. Okay? So the bottom row shows the percentage of SMD seats the largest party received. So just compare the number in the top row and in the bottom row. The largest party in the 14th National Assembly election got about 38% of the votes, but took about 49% of the seats in the National Assembly. Right? Again, 34, 47, 39, 49, 38, 53, 37, 53, 42, 51. Meaning that largest party definitely benefits in the SMD portion of the elections, right? They get more seats than the votes that they receive. And this sort of distortion is actually getting larger, right? 38, 37, and then over 50% of the seats. Well, I said this was the last year's election, and last year we elected 300 National Assembly persons, and 51.63 the 새누리당 had 152 National Assembly members elected, right? But shortly after that, they had to get rid of that Moon Dae-sung guy, and anyway, their majority collapsed, right? They have some problematic members, but it's not a big issue now. So here the point is, SMD rewards largest parties. Okay? And some people say it's good because it gives you a legitimacy to govern. Say if you get 40% of the votes and if you have 40% of the seats in the parliament, it may be difficult to rule the country. Whereas even though you have 40% of the votes, if you have, say, 55% of the seats in the National Assembly, then politics may become much more stable. Okay? Now, in countries with many parties, elections do not yield single-party majorities. If there are 4, 5, 6, 7 parties, it would be difficult for a single party to win the majority of the seats, right? And parties form coalitions to create a new government if the political system is the parliamentary system. Since Korea has been a presidential system, except for about 10 months during the Second Republic, we are not used to the parliamentary system, but there are many parliamentary systems out there. And in parliamentary systems, the government need to control the majority of the seats in the parliament. And in a multi-party system, I said it was unlikely to get for a single party to get a majority of the seats. So what do? They form coalitions, okay, to create a majority. Okay, so much for the electoral system. We are done with the electoral system. And now is the time to ask questions. Anyone? Yeah, microphone. Well, you seem to, you can keep that microphone. And
네, 전 PPT에서 제가 질문을 하나 드리고 싶은 게 여기 한국의 총좌석 이야기를 해주셨잖아요, 의원석. 근데 SMD 총좌석이 국회가 이제 새로 바뀔 때마다 총좌석이 계속 달라지더라고요. 근데 제가 알기로는 이제 SMD 같은 경우는 한 지역에서 한 소선거구제에서 한 명의 대표를 뽑는 거잖아요. 근데 저렇게 의원 수가 달라진다는 것은 그러면 지역이 좀 더 세분화돼서 저희 나라가 더 커지지 않기 때문에 좀 더 지역을 좀 세분화해서 좀 더 의원을 많이 뽑는다는 것인지 궁금해서.
Actually, everything is arbitrary, and it depends on the inter-party bargaining. That is usually largest parties get together and draw the line for individual districts. However, what is being considered is the population change. Since the rate of population growth has been largest in Seoul Gyeonggi area, whereas in the rural area, the population has been shrinking, right? In that case, then 2 districts becomes 1 in the rural area, and then in Seoul Gyeonggi area, they might have to split 1 district into 2. That's why we have 노원병, right? Instead of just 노원. So now we have 노원 갑을병. I don't think there's 노원정, right? So the 노원구 sent 3 National Assembly persons. So as you can see, the numbers change, so they adjust the number of SMD seats every 4 years whenever there are elections, just before the election. So you might remember that last year, the representatives of 새누리당 and 민주당 could not agree on how to divide the district, because normally Korea has 299 seats in the National Assembly. They could not agree, so what happened? Each party gave 1 seat to, basically they meet in the middle and then make the National Assembly total 300 instead of 299. And very crude way of reaching an agreement, the way I see it, because 299 is a very good number. If you think about it, 299, it's easy to calculate the simple majority. Simple majority is 150. It's easy to figure out 2/3. The 2/3 is 200. Okay? Basically, the Korean National Assembly, just like any other parliaments in the world, use simple majority rule. And for a very significant issue, like constitutional change, use two-thirds rule. Now, once you change it to 300, simple majority becomes 151, right? Because 150 is half, not majority, right? I don't want to think about what the 2/3 is. So anyway, so 299 has been a good number, and I think they should have kept it. But out of inter-party bargaining, somehow we have 300-person National Assembly now. Any other? Yeah. So you can switch microphone. Yeah.
네, 08학번 김지수입니다. 그 비례대표 같은 경우에 이제 정당에서 리스트를 작성해서 이제 저희가 그러니까 투표를 하면 그 퍼센트에 의해서 의석이 결정되는 거잖아요. 근데 만약에 정말 제가 만약에 누구를 뽑고 싶은데 비례대표에 있는 뭐 앞에 있는 사람이 되게 마음에 안 들면 그 정당을 안 뽑는 거밖에 방법이 없는 건가요? 그러니까 좀 비례대표의 리스트에 있는 사람 중에서 마음에 안 드는 사람이 있는데 진짜 그 사람이 진짜 안 뽑았으면 좋겠는데 근데 어쩔 수 없잖아요. 비례대표 같은 경우는 주로 당을 먹고 뽑으니까. 근데 만약에 그럴 경우에 그러면 이제 그 당을 투표를 안 하는 것밖에 그 사람을 그러니까 당선 안 되게 하는 것밖에 없는 건지 궁금해서 질문드렸습니다.
Well, that decision is totally up to you, and you don't need to ask me about it. But my feeling is that, and I've been emphasizing this many times. When we vote, we don't vote for a person. We don't vote for a group of people. We vote for a policy package, right? So even if you don't like, I don't know, 문재인과 박근혜와 안철수와 허 whatever, I forgot his name. Anyway, even if you don't like the list, if you are convinced that the party's package, policy package, is what you like, I tend to think that you should still vote for that party. Because in a proportional representation, you vote for a party label. You don't vote for the individual name, right? So you have to. That's why we Koreans call it 정당 명부, right? So we actually circle on. Do we circle or do we stamp or what? Yeah, we stamp right next to the party name. So I don't know why you ended up disliking a certain person in the list, but if you believe that that party will fulfill the party's pledge, my suggestion is that you still need to vote for the party. Well, you may have to suffer for the next 4 years looking at that person on TV all the time, but that's the small cost of getting the policy that you want. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, why don't you move? Yeah. Give her the microphone. Oh.
예, 저는 사회교육과 08학번 정승원이라고 합니다. 제가 질문드리고 싶은 것은 그 미국 의회의 경우에는 이제 상원하고 하원으로 나눠져 있는 것으로 이제 알고 있는데
네.
미국도 상하원 둘 다 그 소선구제 앞에서 예를 드신 것처럼 그렇게 의원을 선출하는 건지 아니면 이제 한국의 경우처럼 소선구제랑 비례대표로 나누어서 하는지 궁금하고요. 만약 이제 미국의 상하원이 둘 다 소선구제로 의원을 선출한다면은 그렇게 상원 하원을 나누는 그 기준이 무엇인지 궁금합니다. 예, 이렇게 두 가지 질문 드리고 싶습니다.
Okay. In the U.S., the House of Representatives, members of House of Representatives represent their own district. Okay, so 435 represent, say, each of, say, 435 districts, whereas the senators represent each states. Okay, so for the senators, their electoral districts are not the regular small SMD, but individual states become electoral district. Okay, so again, the rule is plurality rule, so you don't need to have majority of the votes, but if you win the first place in the statewide vote, then you become the senator representing the state. So there are 50 states in the US, right? And each state sends 2 senators to Washington. So but they do not elect them at the same time. And since there are elections every 2 years in the US, because the term for the members of House of Representatives is just 2 years in the US. So you can stagger the election of these senators. So say this year you elect the Senate seat A from the state of Florida, and 2 years later you elect or fill the Senate seat B from the same state. Okay? So senators represent the states. Members of House of Representatives represent his or her individual districts. Okay? Someone else had questions. Yeah. Microphone, please.
11학번 정태견입니다. 그 교수님께서 이제 다수 정당이 아닌 정당은 이제 둘이 연합을 해서 새로운 정부를 구성하실 수 있다고 말씀하셨잖아요.
In parliamentary systems.
네, 근데 만약에 그렇게 됐을 때는 제 생각에 되고 나서의 정부의 운영에 있어서 많은 차질을 빚을 것 같은데 그런 예시가 실례로 있는지 좀 궁금하고, 만약에 그런 정부 구성이 어렵다면 제 생각에는 SMD든 뭐든 다수 정당이 추진력 있게 전국을 운영하는 것도 나쁘지 않지 않을까라는 생각이 들어서 어떻게 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
Okay, you have two-part questions. The first one is what happens under coalition governments, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about, after I answer your question. So why don't you give me a minute or two and we'll talk about exactly that topic. And second, whether the SMD provides stable government and therefore superior to, say, coalition governments. It's a judgment call. And many political scientists have different opinions about which system is superior. As you mentioned, SMD single-party systems tend to be stable, which is a virtue, whereas, say, coalition government in a multi-party system using proportional representation have less distortion. That is, the vote total and seat total would be much more close in a system like this. So in a way, we can say that sort of system can actually reflect the general public, our will, whereas SMD can distort our will, right? So depending upon what sort of standards that we use, our judgment about single-party government using SMD and coalition government using PR can be different. And we'll spend some time actually later on comparing the performances of different types of political systems. Okay? It's good to hear many questions today. Do you guys have any more questions? Yeah, microphone. You already have one. Okay, go ahead.
네, 11학번 손연지인데요. 아까 영어를 사용하는 나라들에서 SMD 시스템을 많이 가지고 있다고 하셨는데 왜 이렇게 영어를 사용하는 나라들에서 SMD 시스템을 갖추고 있는지 궁금합니다.
First of all, that observation itself is interesting. Second of all, whether the same cultural heritage led to the similar type of political system is something that we can research on. And actually there has been many research in political science comparing English-speaking versus non-English-speaking countries in Western democracies. And ironically, SMD systems tend to be adopted in English-speaking countries, whereas PR tend to be adopted in non-English speaking countries. And also, ideologically, English speaking countries tend to be more conservative or right-wing than non-English speaking countries. Why? Well, we are going to have to study more to give a definitive answer. Right now we have mostly cultural answers, but lately there has been abundance of research in this area, and if we can finish what I want to cover during this semester in time, we'll come back to that point, and I'm going to introduce more research, more recent research by some folks, including myself. That's a very interesting research topic. Well, if we run out of time, I can give you the list of literature that you can actually check on. Okay? But for now, let's leave it at that.